Welcome to Rooted with BODHI, where we explore different tools, different truths, and different ways of thinking by offering insight for you to root into. Today, you'll hear an inspiring interview with BODHI founder Zook and founding healer Emmy Mathis as they speak with Dr. Jeff Wulfman, an MD and functional medicine practitioner. Tune in as Dr. Jeff shares his expertise in how we can move through life with greater well-being by using the science of PEMF mats and his experience with the Kloud mat, a revolutionary advancement in this field of healing.
Oh, all right. So I just wanted to introduce Dr. Jeff Wulfman, who is a board certified functional practitioner who has spent decades addressing chronic illnesses and searching for the root cause of disease, ultimately discovering the power of bioenergetic healing. So today we were going to deep dive into some energy medicine and specifically the science behind the Kloud PEMF mat. So Dr. Wolfman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, it's been quite a journey just in my career, 25, 30 years. And I've seen a number of trends over time, which is no surprise to anybody looking at this, is that the number of people, challenged by chronic, unusual, unexplained, multifactorial issues has just continued to grow. I mean, the body is very challenged these days. And so 15 years ago, it was a lot easier to treat these things. Like people responded more quickly to herbal regimens or different sort of things. But it's got more complicated. And so with that, I've always been on the lookout, like what might I be missing? And I think I talked to you about it. I think we've kind of hit our ceiling with supplements. There's some great ones, but I don't think we can go a whole lot further with that. And so I started delving more and more into energy-based supports. Like, okay, we are energetic beings, right? And I have all this training in biochemistry and physiology and anatomy and all that. But what's before that? Maybe part of the issue is more on the energetic level that's holding people back. And like you all, I'm committed to helping people thrive on every level, and that's taken me on this journey of looking more into energetic means of helping and supporting people, which ultimately led me to looking at frequency healing devices. And I'd been aware of a lot of different devices over the years. I used to teach at meetings and walk through the exhibit halls, and there was always the next best thing over here and the next best thing over here. But I wasn't really satisfied with the level, the technology, or the outcomes. And until now, and this is the only device I personally have. And there's a reason for that. And I hope in our, what I transmit to you around this, why the Kloud truly is a next evolution in frequency-based healing, can help make that apparent why I feel that way. And look forward to collaborating with you all on the beautiful work that you're about and doing. So let's get started. I do have some slides just to help with the educational part, and then we can have a conversation towards the end.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah. And feel free to jump in, both of you, with questions at any point while I'm chatting. All right, let's see here.
Dr. Jeff, while you're pulling that up, would you be willing to say maybe what do you think has changed within the past 15 years that's making it so difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multifactorial in that, I mean, if you just take exposures, the number and the amount and the variety of just in the chemical realm of things that we are exposed to is beyond anything that's ever existed. There's like 80,000 man-made chemicals now. Our soils and our food is more and more depleted, so there are deficiencies. And then there's the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We've never, ever been exposed to this, strange man-made electromagnetic fields that we are living in a soup of that all the time. You cannot escape it anymore. So we actually need resilience. And so I think it's a combination of all those things. It's, it's the exposures, it's the nutrition, it's the electromagnetics, and I think that it's kind of like a perfect storm, and that changes the terrain of the body and just makes it harder for it to thrive. But humans are incredibly resilient, and I think we're gonna rise our way out of this.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So what I want to talk about today is, quote, PEMF. And I say it's finally evolved because there was a stop in the evolution of this technology about 25 years ago that it hasn't really changed a whole lot or evolved until now. And what PEMF stands for is pulsed electromagnetic field, which sounds, scientific, but we are energetic beings, and to me, it's a foundational support for vital living. Tesla said, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. And Einstein said, future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And so this is part of what we're going to explore today. So what is pulsed electromagnetic field? So basically, it's the process of passing the pulsing electromagnetic field through the body to elicit and support beneficial processes. Now, this is a general term, and this is one of the confusions. People think, oh, PEMF, I have one of those, or so-and-so, or I tried it, or whatever. But that's like saying supplements or herbs or meds and lumping them all into this. Oh, I tried a supplement one time, but it didn't do anything. And then globalizing that to, quote, supplements don't work. So it's the same thing with PEMF. They're all different. They have all different properties to them. Now, so you can't generalize that. It's been used for 50 plus years. It's mainstream medicine in Russia, Poland, the Czech Republic, and it's having rapid increased use around the world. There are thousands of publications. So this is in the beneficial. Well, people are like, isn't EMF bad for you? Well, there is harmful spectrum of electromagnetic fields, and then there's beneficial ones. So, 5G and all that would be on one end, and this is actually within the realm of physiology. So we're talking about extreme low frequency. This is within the physiologic range. What the Kloud, the range it does is within what the body's normally exposed to. And it also is low intensity. There are some high intensity PEMF units with a very high powered. This is a low intensity, low frequency. And some may say, well, don't you have to have that intense power to do anything? And the bottom line there says when it's a very complex signal, you don't need a lot of force. And that's one of the things I like about the Kloud is it's not forcing a reaction. It's diffusely supporting the body, which is a different. So does, quote, PEMF equal PEMF? No, there are many variables, which I mentioned. There's the intensity, what specific frequencies, what's the spectrum, what's the waveform, how long you're exposed to it. Even with all those differences, when you look at the literature, there's an overall marked positive impact on biochemistry and physiology and also the organism level. And at the bottom there, it says no risk, which is extremely important. So I won't go through the details of this. This is just showing how the, quote, research is very confusing, where they may use a very, very simple basic device, which is like 1% of what the Kloud does. And then they'll say, oh, low frequency PEMF doesn't really work for this thing. That's like taking, cheap calcium from Costco and studying it in something and say, supplements don't work for that. So we have to be aware of that. So what does it do? And this was puzzling to me at the beginning because I saw all these different things, how it affected the body. And I couldn't quite, it took me a while to get my head around it because my whole training, even though I'm a very holistically minded, expanded, education person in functional medicine and so forth, still tend to think a little linear, like, oh, there's this one defect and you bring in this one thing to cause this thing to happen, which does that. But what we see with high quality PEMF is it has a diffuse effect on the body. Like some of the examples, it shows anti-inflammatory. It reduces inflammation is, a core issue in all chronic diseases. Helps stem cells to differentiate blood flow, nitric oxide release, oxygen delivery, augment depression treatment, inflammatory syndromes, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, wound healing, pain syndromes, etc. And how can it do all that? I mean, part of that, and we'll talk about that a little more, is because it's diffusely activating at the molecular level, so the cell membranes are better. And a cell that is detoxing, regenerating, replicating requires multitudes more energy than a cell that's just maintaining. So at the very beginning, we talked about how, wow, there are a lot of challenges on the body. And so the body actually has to, on an ongoing basis, right now, all of you, your body's doing 1,000 different things trying to maintain, but also improve. And because of all the toxins and the exposures and the deficiencies, et cetera, and the microbes, that requires a lot of energy. And I think more energy than it used to because there weren't as many stressors. So why did I wait until now to start using any PEMF technology for myself and my clients? Like I said, I knew it had great potential, but it wasn't quite good enough for me. The prior technology has very basic signal and a very narrow spectrum. It's not very complex or sophisticated, or some of them you can't even find out, like what are the specifics. One of the analogies I like to use is most devices out there, if you think in terms of sound, are like one piano key or two piano keys or one drum. It's a very narrow spectrum. It's one note, whereas the Kloud is a 30-piece orchestra playing every instrument all at once. And so that's what sets it apart. And I'll talk about why that translates. So this is the creator of the Kloud, Dr. Kafka. He's like the Edison of PEMF technology. I met him in Liechtenstein, actually went over there last year. I went to company headquarters, met him. Because to me, it's important who's the generator of this technology. And where's his heart and his mind? And he's like, I'd want this guy to be my grandpa. He's so cool and just a really sweet heart. But he has continued to evolve this technology so much so that the Kloud has 50 times greater molecular activation in a session than anything else that currently exists. And, there's 3 patents, and this is state of the art. So it's so much different than actually PEMF. They've actually termed it PEMA. You can see in the upper right, which stands for pulsed electromagnetic activation. It's so far beyond the existing technology. It really isn't a class by itself. 50 times greater activation power. It's also super easy to use. It's wireless. You can use it. You can run it from an app. It's portable. It's user friendly. It's made in Switzerland, and it's a FDA class 1 medical device. That's a safety declaration that they've made, but it's a wellness and fitness device. So I want to show this. This is really showing how has this frequency therapy evolved over time. Most devices are all the way on the left. Very simple waveform, very narrow. And the dots are basically how many molecules in the body does that stimulate? Not many. So it does something, but not a lot. And then in 1998 was the next evolution. And actually Kafka created that one in 98. It was the first sort of broadband one. And then what he has developed now and patented now is the Kloud signal, which is multitudes broader and therefore activates 50 times more molecules than anything else does, which is where the effect comes from. So to me, it was like, okay, using other devices is like using a flip phone versus an iPhone 15 or whatever. Yes, you can make a phone call, but it is very limited. So he actually did the calculations. The one in the middle, in a 15-minute session, there's like 450,000 impulses, whereas the Kloud you get 23 million impulses. And every molecule has its own frequency, like one glass vibrates different than another. So you need to get that whole spectrum to hit all those pieces.
Jeff, I just wanted to make mention, because I thought this was really interesting, that the beamer was actually also done by Kaufman as well. So is that going back to the 1998? That was...
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Allie, thank you for that. So yes, that's the one in the middle is the beamer signal. And when it was developed in 98, it was the next evolution of the technology. You can see the ones on the left versus that. And Kafka created that. He was the creator of the beamer signal, and Beamer as a company brought PEMF to the world, like to the West. And so, but it has not changed in 25 years. It's the exact same signal as it was 25 years ago. And he continued to evolve the technology like a good scientist who never stops, creating into this, which is, and I've heard him talk about it. It's his own creation, the beamer signal. And he's like, that's 25 years ago. This is 50 times more impactful than that is. And there's a whole like political story behind that whole scene where they actually had to create a whole new company to bring this technology to the world, which is Centropix, and the Kloud mat is coming through Centropix.
Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of our listeners are going to be, Beamer is the name that everyone resonates with.
Sure.
And so I love that this is kind of, right, the next evolution and the jump that we're taking. So just want to make sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and this is important to some people. If you look at the shape of the one in the middle, and then you look over to the right, you can see that beamer signal is sort of tucked in the middle of that. It's actually in there, plus hundreds of times more. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like the supplement analogy would be, just taking magnesium versus taking magnesium and ashwagandha and probiotics and a trace mineral and, a very complex, nuanced regimen of multiple supportive plants and, omega-3s. Do you see the analogy? It's like a piece versus the whole picture in terms of the frequency support.
Can I ask a question to maybe expand a little bit on how the frequencies work with the molecules?
Yes.
So I've been studying sound a lot more, and I'm going to continue more into that. And so we're really looking at, 222 each frequency. And what I'm thinking is that with this expanded range of frequencies, it matches with the molecules. But then what does it do to the molecules? What does it do to the cells? Does it reinforce them? Does it support them? How does it help them to do what they need to do?
Great question. And I get this, and I had some similar questions before. I'm like, what does it do? Does it like make new mitochondria? Does it stimulate? So everything in the body is made up of molecules, although all the structures at that level, at the physical level. And it's even all the way down to the electron level. So, electrons are spinning around, and if they're like in a low energy orbit, there's not a lot of energy potential there to do things. So it's actually activating molecules at the electron level. So raising the electrons into a higher range, and then the body decides what to do with it. Look, the body knows what to do. It's doing it all the time, and it's trying to do it very hard, include, heal and transform and what we call symptoms or diseases. It's constantly trying to handle that, but it has to have the energy to do it. So you're basically giving it the potential, and then the body decides how to use that. It's not forcing detox or forcing mitochondria to do this. It's actually activating at the electron and molecular level. And it takes energy to make new mitochondria or keep cell membranes, intact and create a cellular charge, and to detox and for the immune system to gobble up microbes, et cetera. Does that make sense? So it's actually at the very, very root, and that's, my root cause. This is like a root support.
Yeah.
You're actually going back to the beginning and providing that energy.
Yeah. And it really reminds me of kind of like cosmologically, what this planet for me represents is this idea of consent and choice. And a lot of people that I follow and study, we talk a lot about moving from consent into love. And what I love is it's like an offering, like we're offering this to you, and then the body consents and to what it needs to do. And it also goes in with that inherent intelligence of our own bodies. I think it's really special.
I love that. That's awesome. And I had some, questions initially. I'm like, okay, great. There's this signal and all that, but how do I know this? How do I know this signal is beneficial? Because there's a lot of frequencies that are maybe harsh on the system or hard. And there are several. I'll show a little further down. Like, okay, how do the body's cells respond to it? How does water respond to it? I don't have that slide here, but they actually tested the Kloud mat on water at Dr. Emoto's lab, messages in water and how frozen water can form crystals or not. They took water exposed to Wi-Fi, it couldn't form any crystals. They gave it a Kloud session and formed this beautiful crystal. Okay, water restructuring. And animals love this thing. If you have a dog or cat and you heard you're lying there doing a Kloud session, it's very likely they're going to climb on top of you. Like they can feel it and they love it. And you can't fool water and you can't fool cells and you can't fool animals. So that was important to me.
I do have to say we were on with Jilly and Jilly was on her mat and her dog literally came, sat and was rolling on his back to push her off.
Yeah, it's like, hey, move over.
It's great demonstration.
Yeah, for sure. This is just another visual of like the evolution of the signal, like the bigger curve and so forth. It covers more ground by multiple magnitudes. So here's the cell video I was telling you about. These are human cells, and all those little round pieces are cells. And what they're supposed to do is close that space as fast as possible. That's what fibroblasts do. They, like, if you had a tear in a muscle or something, they're supposed to close it up. So the Petri dish on the bottom got a Kloud session for 15 minutes, and the one that top did not. And then they watched it for 48 hours. This is a time lapse. Everything else is the same. Nutrition's the same. Temperature's the same. Light, everything. The only difference is the cells in the bottom were given a charge through the electromagnetic frequency, and they're able to do what they're trying to do twice as fast. And this really impacted me because it was like, I want all my cells doing this. I want my detox pathways twice as capable. I want my microbe, handling white blood cells and, cancer tissue monitoring system twice as robust, et cetera. So I felt was really important. And so if you look all the way, here's the domino effect that I wanted to speak. If you look all the way on the right, like, we want to improve quality of life, to be vibrant and healthy, energetic, pain-free, sleeping well, thinking well, etc. We'll go one step to the left. What do you need for that? You have to have resilience and the ability to self-heal and handle challenges and transform and transmute. And what do you need prior to that? Well, there's biochemical reactions. And this is where I spent most of my career, like trying to figure out supplements and occasional medications and diet, nutrition, and so forth, trying to get biochemistry to go. But one to the left of that is actually the molecular activation. That's biophysics. It actually precedes biochemistry. So that's where the Kloud comes in. And I've seen people on the best regimens, including my own clients, et cetera, who are just plateaued. Yeah, they're just not moving forward, despite how you try and move the supplements around and the this and that and the body work and so forth. Those things are helpful, right? But when you add the molecular charge, then it pushes everything to the right, because you got to have that. And sometimes that's the rate limiting step for that part. And the Kloud has 5 different programs. So they each with a little different. The green is the intensity and the red is the frequency. All the programs are 15 minutes. You pick which one, you start it, it runs for 15 minutes, then stops. So there's a relaxer, balance, energize, synchronize, and transform. And they all have a little different. We could do another video in the future of just on the programs where, that you could share with your people who get the Kloud and utilize it, just to like talk about the specifics of each one of those. Like the transform at the bottom right, that's really deep tissue penetration. It's the most anti-inflammatory. I love program 4, synchronize, very low frequency grounding, head heart alignment. Balance is like very like electroacupuncture, very settling to the nervous system. Because that's the other piece. It is molecular activation, but it's also bringing the nervous system into nice alignment and coherence, which is, very important. And then the other 2 on the left, the relax and energize, those are like the opposite. If you're really wound up and can't sleep, the relaxer can bring you down, and the energize goes the other direction there. So, what I've been using it for a little over 2 years. And this Kloud PEMF, pulse electromagnetic activation, I bring it in as a foundation upon which I add other things. So when you add the electroceuticals, which I would say the Kloud is an electroceutical plus nutraceuticals, like 1 + 1 = 50. It's markedly improved outcomes. Doubles my response rate to protocols. People who are stuck come off of that. They don't relapse as much. They're able to handle treatments. They begin to resolve. I've seen some people start resolving things I could not move the needle on with everything, because the issue was energy, not biochemistry, and just quality of life. So this isn't one of the questions. So I just have to do this and don't do anything else? Not necessarily, but this multiplies and magnifies the body's ability to respond to all those other things. So supplements become great again because the issue was energy, not biochemistry. It's like the deepest root cause, which is molecular energy. You got to charge the battery. And so this is just a little graphic showing you're lying on the mat. This very complex field is running through your body and charging at the molecular level. And this is one of the analogies that really, in the upper right, showing a cell phone lying on a wireless charger. When you have a cell phone with all this capacity, all these apps and software, and could do a million things, when that battery charge is low, it goes into low power mode and it has to stratify. No, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Just have to keep the very basics running. And the body's a little similar when there's an energy deficit. Can't do that, can't do that, can't keep up with that, but I can only keep this going. So you lay on the mat, that pulsed field, just like the cell phone, that pulsed field is running through there and it's raising the energy potential. And now, like in the phone, you can tell it to do whatever you want, and it's got the power to do it. One of the questions, like, does it work for Lyme or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia? Does it work for diabetes? Does it work for this? Does it work for that? And it's really not necessarily the right question. There's no specific frequency for a specific diagnosis because this is diffuse support to what the body's already doing. And so, to me, it's great because on some level, it doesn't matter what the quote diagnosis is because the body is trying to heal and you are supporting its capacity to heal by bringing this in. The other question I always get from people is like, well, there are certain cells in the body I wouldn't want it to like support bad cells as well as good cells. And this is where, being a benevolent frequency and a benevolent technology, because in the basic science research of just PEMF in general, like bad tissue and bad cells, you could imagine what I'm talking about, actually is weakened by it. And the body's normal functioning cells are actually strengthened. It has a differential effect on those two things. And I just want to show you that the company is the only company in the world that's done a large scale study on the sort of quality of life outcomes. This was 440 people. This was done at the University of Vienna, Sigmund Freud University. And these are people who just bought the Kloud. They did a survey before it showed up at their house. And then 6 weeks later, unsupervised, it was up to them how they did it, whether to use it. So at the top there, 85% of people use it regularly, which means it's easy to use and it works. And so you can see at the beginning, only 25% of people said, yeah, I got a good amount of energy. 6 weeks later, 70% of people said that. Those who said, I don't have any fatigue, only a quarter did, but that increased to 60%. And then pain almost doubled in terms of people who had no pain. Sleep problems cut by 50%. And then, one of the ones down there is social activity impaired by health. Like that dropped significantly because when you feel bad, you just don't, want to do much. Now at the bottom, again, I want to say you cannot generalize the results of this study, which will be published within this year, to quote PEMF, because it is not the same signal or technology. It's like I said, it's like taking a very complex supplement regimen and just taking one thing. Oh yeah, it works. Supplements just work. But it's unique to the Kloud. And this is near and dear to my heart because the vast majority of these consults I used to do years ago with these complex, clients, pretty much all of them would have said, yeah, I have severe fatigue. This was a subset in that group. Now, what many of them probably had as underlying causes. So 100% of them at the beginning said, I have severe fatigue. At the end, only 15% classified themselves as being severely fatigued. And then if you look down at the no desire to do anything, 90% said that at the beginning and only 26% after just 6 weeks. So I don't know of any other like single input that can support this magnitude of broad quality of life improvement with no risk. So how can lying on a mat in this complex pulsed field, 15 minutes, once or twice a day, the recommended use is twice a day, lead to this level of outcome? How is that possible? Well, this is get back to what we talked about before. The body's natural state is vital, pain-free, etc. It knows what to do and it's trying to do it all the time, but it has to have energy. So you provide the energy through the electromagnetic energy transfer to the molecules. And now there's a greater probability of all those dominoes moving to the right. So, and it doesn't force anything, which I like. This is like sovereignty and free will, and that is really important to me too, even in a healing modality. And this is not forcing the body; it's actually just providing it the potential, and then the body says, "Yeah, I'm going to take that and do this, and I'm going to do that." And also, when you try and, as you know, action counter reaction, when you try and force something to happen, there's a counter pulse. So I like that just from a metaphorical standpoint too. The Kloud was just featured. There's a documentary on Amazon Prime called Biohack Yourself, and they out of all the sort of PEMF type devices, the Kloud is the one that they chose for their episode. And go Team Human. That's all I have.
Go Team Human. I love this. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, I have to say, you really got me when we were talking about the PEMF, and then no, it's PEMA, molecular activation. And it's just so profound. I mean, I think that's, we were discussing about, the healing center that Emmy and I are opening, and, we can offer all these wellness techs, and, you can do the infrared sauna and you can do the hyperbaric chambers, but the body, if it is not at a level where it can actually begin healing itself, this molecular charge, none of that, really can have.
It has, those things have a limited effect. Not because they're bad, but you have to have the charged system to then respond to hyperbaric, red light, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, that's like if you're stacking, things, like this is the foundation to stack upon.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the piece which I love that I know you're working on putting some info on this on your website, and I love that you talked about also this entrainment and coherence piece too, because to have a calm, relaxed, balanced nervous system is important for healing, and it's such a gift to, like, I've had several people cry after a 15-minute Kloud session, like on program 4 Synchronize, or because they actually got to feel their system calm down, their nervous system. Most people are in this sympathetic overdrive, fight or flight, and also the chronic complex illness people, they have a lot of nervous buzzing and things. And I've had people just go practically comatose after one because they finally were able to relax. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back in an hour. They're still asleep. I'll wake them up. But so that's another really, really sweet piece of it too, is that it can, be calming to the system, which is great.
Not to segue into this, but I mean, what a time that is needed for this moment. I feel, with the collective, if we want to discuss kind of what is happening on the planet at this time, the amount of anxiety, the unknown, the transition, the shifting that's happening, I feel this mat is going to be another one of those reasons as to why I promote it so much is, people are like, I'm upping my medications, I'm doing this, or I'm working out like a crazy person. And there's a part where, like, no, right, going back to that alignment and being able to calm your nervous system to go into rest and digest.
So and every day you take this thing and charge it, because you want it to do what you want it to do, right? And
Yeah.
so it's, that's a little simplistic, but it's actually not. Like you for your body to be able to do what it's trying to do and do it well, you have to charge it. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that we're missing out at contemporary culture misses is there's such a lack of what used to recharge us, right? So it's like collective singing used to recharge us, co-regulation. There were all of these things that we could recharge with, and even like nutrient dense foods would recharge us. But we're in such a state of lack right now, I think, on the inside and outside. And I love that. It just seems like such this beautiful, simplistic idea of what are we recharging with and how are we recharging? And
Yeah. And that, like we said before, you take that part you talked about with the escalating challenges. So that the energy needs are actually higher than they used to be, as well as not having, not having as much, of the supports. And I know you all are very conscious and wanting to help support people in their whole evolution, body, mind, and spirit. And this is part of one of my goals too. Is like, don't forget the body. You still have a body, and actually to be able to handle and embody this bigger transformation requires a robust system. Yeah.
I've been listening to Eileen McCusick's Electric Body, Electric Health, and she also uses that metaphor of what are we recharging with. And she had said something that I've said and thought many times, like I actually feel like I'm here learning how to descend. I'm learning how to have a body. Like I'm terrible at doing my dishes. I just want to eat takeout all the time. It's like really like this process of how do I physically, like, how do I encompass this beautiful temple, because my body is a temple. And even like this morning, I was just like, but I just want to eat takeout sometimes. And it's like, okay, but you're going to trash your temple just because you can clean it up doesn't mean that you just want to keep trashing it. But really kind of thinking about this, not just as a vessel, but as like a temple, because our minds and our souls have created, like my body is my mind, my body is my soul. And it's not just like this container, it's like this beautiful vessel that needs our love. And that's a part of our practice, is integrating, I think, with this body that has its inherent intelligence.
Yeah, well said. And before we got started here, I'd mentioned too, around like sometimes I see in spiritual circles and so forth, this sort of ignoring the body and like just bypassing it, and like, but I mean, part of my cosmology too is to actually to in spirit and in soul into the, not to like jettison and leave the body, but actually bring it home. And so that's where the body care is so important for that part. And I think a lot of people who are trying to evolve and ascend and do all that, they don't realize how much they're held down by their physicality. Yeah. So that part's important.
So Dr. Jeff, with, the shifts that are happening on the planet right now, where do you see medicine going in the next 5 to 10 years? Or is that a Pandora's box?
Into a burning dumpster. Oh my gosh.
Old ways are not working.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like simultaneously, destruction and evolution happening all at the same time. The old model clearly has some deep flaws to it. Mm-hmm. It's still part of my heritage. There's a thread that runs through that is can be very much life-saving and so forth. But it's just, I think people are getting smarter. They're getting angry. They are demanding other things. They are aware of other things. And the energetics, I just see the energetics, like the stuff we're talking about here, is one level, but that is just going to continue to, grow in energy medicine and all that. Plus, like we said, things are happening, seem to be happening so fast now, even on the like psycho-emotional standpoint, like in my career, like working with people 15, 20 years ago, like, okay, working through your depression, anxiety, like, stuff would take months and months and do this. And it's like, oh yeah, I process that. like in 2 days. Like that used to take like 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
it's really amazing how fast things are happening. So I'm not sure, but it's exciting where it's all going, because it's evolving so fast.
So fast.
Yeah.
Amazing. Emmy, did you have any questions?
I'm looking at the notes that I typed up a little bit. I think it's less questions and more my mind just being really well. No, I think I do have a few questions. Because what I was thinking when you were speaking about, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about plasma and the ether, and it's what I'm hearing is really making a lot of connections. And so when you were talking about the mat itself, I really started to think about Reiki actually, and how they talk about how Reiki is intelligent and it knows where to go. And then I was thinking about like Ali's Kundalini practices, like, so I'm just like, oh gosh, I think a study, like, it would be so cool to see a study that looks at these physical tangible things that we can do, like sitting on the cloud, or like 20 minutes of Reiki or 15 minutes of like a Kundalini, because I was taking this class and I just kept kind of cycling back to this phrase, many paths, one way. And I was like, oh, I wonder what that would look like in a study. And what I really appreciate about you and about Ali and about the people that I tend to gravitate towards is we're like, I want to know what that looks like on a study. I want to know scientifically what's happening, and we're going to make the tools to track it if we have to, And so I think I'm kind of curious where, yeah.
Well, so that study won't be done with this, because it's a fitness and wellness device with no medical claims, for reasons you can imagine, to stay completely outside of that, because then the constraints come in, right? But just like, for instance, like people who are meditators and so forth, and I know Joey has experienced this too, and my wife, like when they lay on the cloud, in that particularly like program 2 or 4, the very sort of like gentle ones, and are doing like some form of meditation or audio, something, it's like they go twice as far, twice as fast, because there's a synergy of some kind there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know, like, how's this affecting sort of the etheric body and the energetic body and those kinds of things. That would be cool to. Oh, I have had some practitioners who, like, they use some form of like energy testing to see if the chakras are open or closed, or are they aligned. And she's I was going to give her a demo. This one naturopath who does this all day long with people and does all kinds of things to bring them in. She's like, let me go out and check my centers, see if they're open or closed. And she's like, okay, they're all closed, or whatever. One's open. I'm like, all right, cool. Why don't you do a 15-minute thing? And she's like, I'm not sure. I felt so much. She go, let me go check. And she comes back in, her eyes like this. They're all open. This takes me like hours in the clinic. I'm like, well, just use this thing and, like, help you to bring that about. Yeah. So
excited for my mat.
Cool. It seems really, really special.
Yeah. And it's life is a mix, and we need to look at all the pieces and parts, and it's a piece of the overall wellness and thriving adventure, but it seems like a really important based support.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Because it's like, do you want to recharge your iPhone on a cube from 2008, or do I want to recharge it?
Yes.
Let you know.
Most advanced, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's just, even I think 2020, we can all say, is where the whole, ramp up and, as things went back to normal, I mean, we're still operating on this hamster wheel that actually just got a level more chaotic, and it's, I think, going to get a little bit more that way in the next few months and years. And so this mat, again, to have something, a tool in your house that can, quickly get you back into balance. I mean, wish I had it 5 years ago.
Yeah, me too. I mean, for me, like, it was fatigue. Well, I'm just curious about anything that works, but also, like, for me personally, it was around some fatigue. I had a energy ceiling I couldn't get beyond with all the stuff I know to do. And then I started using it, and it pushed that ceiling up because the issue was one shift to the left in that domino thing. So that was important. And I've worked with thousands of people with all kinds of chronic complex issues who weren't always that way, right? A lot of them were super healthy people, and then some not out of fear, but I'm like, okay, this is a possibility, and I don't want that I don't prefer that for my life moving forward, to have a decline or something. And I can't avoid everything. You just can't. That's okay. Okay. So, but therefore, I have to be as resilient as possible to handle toxins, and crazy food, and EMFs, and whatever. I have to be resilient. And what do I need to be resilient? I got to have the energy to be resilient, and to repair and restore and regenerate. So that was part of my, my thinking process for myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm all about, the biohacking, and this, as you said, is like the beginning level, right?
Yeah.
You can take all the supplements, you can do all these, at the foundationally comes into the
and then you stack those other things on top that
the cellular activity.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jeff, would you be willing to talk about how you use the mat in your personal life?
Yeah. So I use it, I would say 80 to 90% of the days I use it at least once. And probably 60% of the day, 70% I use it twice, sometimes 3 times if I have an acute stressor going on. So we everywhere we travel, when we travel, we take it. It's it folds up into the shoulder bag, and now it comes with a little rolling trolley suitcase thing, but it folds into a shoulder bag. I take it as a carry-on the airplane, so we take it everywhere we go. I don't travel without it. So yeah, it's a regular part of my life and a regular part of my wife's life too, and friends and family who come over like, can I do a Kloud session? Like, sure. So yeah, it's just like I'm very conscious of what I eat, and how I treat my body otherwise, and this is right there with it. So
have you noticed things in your external life kind of coming into harmony as well? I've been thinking a lot of sound and frequency lately, so I was thinking like it's like the internal, as you are more internally resourced, do you also feel like externally things have kind of lined up a little bit more or differently? Or
yes, I would say so. And it's part of this, it's part of this just fatigue and vitality when that is, suboptimal. I don't know about you, but for me, it's like I just, taking proactive steps to create something new or connect with someone or some new piece of work, or I'll just be like, yeah. Whereas if I have more energy by time, like, yeah, I want to check this out. I'll try this. I'll call this person. I'll explore this, creative thing I'm curious about. So it very much supports like my life that way too, because I'm more likely to do other things and creative things than if I'm not feeling that great. Yeah.
if you were speaking to someone who has like a really unique case or a high amount of stress or a lot of anxiety, right? Kind of like maybe you at the beginning of your journey or us at the beginning of our journey or a client, what would you want them to know about their journeys and just kind of moving forward and keeping with it? Or I don't know, any advice or words of wisdom?
Are you talking about like just in general or in relation to
Yeah, so I
this,
think
or?
in general, like, and also specifically, so like if we have listeners that I know for me, when I hear people who are further along in their journey of recovery and health and vitality, I'm always, it can get a little destabilizing, a little bit of like
Oh
a little
yeah, I
FOMO,
see.
like,
Yeah,
like when will
yeah.
I be there? And it's, it's hard to be on the other side
Yes,
of that.
yes,
Yeah.
it is. I think just keep going. Yeah, just keep going, and be really, aware of where you're putting your focus, and or you focus on the not have, instead of the have, and I get it. I have sat with many people, in the office who just all those things, and oh geez, try one more thing, and I've had so many disappointments, and they actually end up having a lot of PTSD from the system, and just failures and being told what's wrong with you and all those kinds of things. But, there is an innate intelligence, a soul level intelligence, and a homing system that will guide you to your healing if that's what you truly want. So you have to be careful of, do I actually want to be vibrant and healthy, and then listen to your intuition and listen to your innate guidance, and it will point you. I mean, this is a lost, getting a little off on a tangent, but it's something I talk about. This is a little bit of a lost quality, or a quiet quality in humans that I think we can access. Like if you look at even just like chimpanzees or something, if they get a heavy load of parasites, now they don't look at their poop and say, oh, there's worms, but there's some innate, like something is off. They will spontaneously go roaming through the jungle and eat specific plants that have anti-parasitic qualities. They've never been shown that. It's not a learned behavior. It's an innate guidance to, I'm just going to go and I'm going to eat this thing that I never eat, because some part of me knows that's beneficial to me. Now, I believe we have the same capacity to do that, but you have to learn to tune into it and to trust it and just keep going. We've been so conditioned out of it and all this, like all in our head and all that, but trust get in touch with your inner guidance of your healing path. And I think that's really important.
Thank you for saying that, because that's when we were talking about, it's embodiment. We've been so disconnected from our higher selves, from our intuition. We don't trust our bodies, right? We've given our authority away. And truly, I feel like, going back to this shift on the planet, we need to bring back our sovereignty, listen to the body. We innately know how to do this, and it's time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Yay! Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeff, for joining us. This has been really lovely. We really appreciate all of this information. And if someone wants to learn more about you or your work, is there somewhere we can direct them to?
No, thanks. Yes, quantumparasiteprotocol.com. So that's something I have created that's sort of the culmination of my work, looking at multiple dimensions of life and parasitism. So quantumparasiteprotocol.com.
Perfect. And then we'll put that in the show notes as well. So yes, right. Dr. Jeff, thank you so very much. These conversations are just so exciting and energizing for me.
Yeah, I like it too. So I'm open to more. So.
Oh, good. I hope.